Not back here yet.
Testing 1, 2, and we looks like our streaming. So welcome to Builder Buy. The audio here in the building is not working, so we're using mics so the folks online can hear us. So you should be able to hear us fine. We're a little bit late getting started. It's 1:33. We normally start at 1 o'clock. Welcome to Builder Buy. We meet every Wednesday from 1 to 3. This is our second time to be in this location, and I want to thank the folks with Chapelwood for allowing us to meet in their scout building. Last week, Jack talked to us and showed us that's as good as I can do, folks, to talk. You got two choices. I can turn that on, you'll hear the buzz, or you're going to have to accept it like this. That's only two options we have. I've called Tommy. We'll have to have those on for people to hear us. Again, like I said, those have to be on, but you will not hear them. Only the people online will be able to hear you.
Oh, that's bad news. I better keep my mouth shut.
Because everything you're saying, they'll hear online. So those mics need to be on. To reiterate again, we're using the mics so that the people online can hear us. We'll get one mic on this side, one mic on that side. Maybe we can get, can you? You can't hear? Doesn't work. Okay. We'll try this again. A little bit of confusion while we're trying to get set up. The audio problem started just as we started to use the system. So we have two options. It'll have to be like this, where we're using the mic so the people online can hear us, or I can turn the audio back on so we can hear ourselves in here, as well as they'll hear us online, but we're going to have a buzz in the audio system. There's nothing I can do about that buzz. I don't know what's causing it. I need Tommy to come over and take a look at it. He's at Fairhaven working on that system, so this is the best we can do today. I hope we'll have it better next week. For a long-term solution, this is probably where we're going to be meeting. Again, they're in the middle of trying to get everything set up at Fairhaven for their grand opening, which is the 20th. Even for us to go back to Fairhaven, I think it's going to be short-term. This will probably be the long-term location where we meet. Yes, David? Can we get a mic on David so everybody can hear online? Thank you, David. Okay, I'll explain it for the third time. Is everybody listening?
Okay, well, here's the suggestion. If we are going to be able to hear you, it's going to necessitate that if people around here are having private conversations, that they get up and go over to the hallway over there, because otherwise the people right around you cannot hear what he's saying.
I agree.
Okay? You're not the only one.
Thanks, Nick. Okay. This is Builder Buy. We meet usually from 1 to 3 o'clock. The goal is to meet at 1 o'clock. We're late today because I had other stuff to deal with. Mom's having some swelling problems with her legs, and so I'm having to deal with that. I got to see a doctor. I'm hoping tomorrow about that. If this don't get done fixed quick, I may be firing another doctor. Anyway, moving on to Builder Buy. Last week, Jack talked to us about his new laptop. Jack, have you had a chance to use your laptop any? Can we get a mic on to, please raise your hand, get a mic so we can hear you.
It's on the way back to. It's on the way back to California with a bum speaker.
With a bum speaker, wow, wow. So, was there anything else wrong with it? Just a bad speaker?
No, I love the way it works in other respect and stuff with it, and it was compared to all my other stuff, Jackrabbit quick. So.
Yeah, I was impressed with it too. So thanks for the update. So going back for a speaker fix. When did they say you'd get it back?
About 10 days.
10 days for a
up to
speaker?
10 days, yeah.
Wow.
My biggest hassle was getting, they issued me a return label for it, which they emailed to me right away.
Right.
And I got it on there. This all finally got taken care of Monday after playing phone tag with it for a day and a half. And then I spent the better part of Monday trying to get FedEx to pick it up because their computer system was down.
Ah. Got you. Yes. Very frustrating. Okay. So that's what we have on that. I was going to show you a router today. It's an interesting router made by Microtik. I told you about it last week. I ordered a Microtik router. It's a Microtik brand MicroBoard. I ordered a model 2011, and they sent me a model 3011, which is better than what I had originally planned. But are y'all interested in a router today? Okay, I'll tell you about it. I'm going to show you online, so I'm going to go to a computer. Let's go to this computer right here, which will be number 2. If you can put me up on screen. Number two computer. The one that's got builder by. There we go. Okay, we're going to look it up.
Gil, is there any way we can dim these lights a little bit?
They're either off or on. I don't know. This is the second time to be here. Somebody else dealt with the lights last week. I don't remember what the status was. Do you remember?
It wasn't that bright because I could read the screen last week, and I can't.
Who dealt with the lights last week? Okay, thanks, Philip. Okay, the Microtik router board 3011. Okay, that also affects the lighting on the cameras when you do that. Okay, the Microtik router board, I'm going to show you the one probably at Amazon, because this link is going to be a little bit faster. What's nice about this, I've got 10 gigabit Ethernet ports. If I can show a bigger picture of it.
Are they all rack mounts?
Yes, that was the unusual thing about the Microtik. This whole thing started because that's what I was looking for. I was looking for a rack mount. Take me back over to number 1. Thank you, Lou. Okay. Appreciate it. Okay, I was looking for a, it's hard to keep all this track in my head. I was looking for a rack mount router. I needed something to go with the rig the way we're using now. I still have the other router I've been using, but I needed something that fit in 1 unit space. If you go looking for a rack mount router, they're hard to find. And this Microtik router was the one that showed up. And what's curious about it is the size. It's about the size of a 2x4, 19 inches long, the thickness and the depth of a 2x4. Very lightweight. It's got 1 power on the back, and it's got 10 Ethernet ports on the front, 10 gigabit Ethernet ports on the front, 5 on one side and 5 on the other. It's got a little LED screen on it that'll light up, and when you first power it up, as it boots, it makes a little beep, and it shows you on the screen what you're supposed to do, because this also has wireless in it. No external antennas, but it's got wireless. The model I was looking at was a 2011 that didn't have those bells and whistles. Yes, the easy way to find it is Microtik router board, and just look up model 3011. All that other stuff is a lot of blah, blah, blah. Just remember Microtik router board 3011. There's a 3011, there's a 2011, which is what I was going for. And I'll do a search on it right quick, show you the difference. Microtik 2011. And the 2011, I'll bring it up on a separate link. This is the one that I had ordered. That's not what I got. There are 5 gigabit Ethernet ports, and then there are 5 fast Ethernet ports. That's what I ordered. Remember last week I told you guys I had probably 7 different orders, now 8, that I've had a problem with Amazon. It's been, I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't experienced it. It also has the little screen on it as a readout, and physically it's the same size. So I've got 5 on that one, gigabit, and 5 fast Ethernet. It's a little bit less expensive. This one was $113.55. But even though I ordered the 2011, what I received was the 3011, and that's what's in the rack. I had this rascal mounted, and I was working with it. And what got me to realize I had the wrong one was I was looking at the manual, I looked at the numbers, and I said, Well, that's different than what I ordered. I didn't realize that all that was in there. I got to look into the numbers and realized I didn't get what I ordered. I got better than what I ordered. So, go figure. It also has power over Ethernet on one port, which I will probably not use. The gigabit ports are a nice idea. It runs its own operating system, which is from Microtik, router OS. And all I need to do is plug a cable into it so we can look at it. If I can put a camera down there on it, and I haven't had time to do that, I'll get a better picture of this. But in the interest of time, let me see if I can go find a better picture online. Microtik 3011. See if we can find a good image of it. Yeah, that's a better image. Not as big as I like. Bigger. Well, let's see how. We do the search, more tools. Show sizes. Show me large. That's a good point. We might have better luck at Newegg with a picture. So let's see what the picture here will show us. Great. See if I can zoom in any further. And there's a little bit better picture. It also has a port for fiber. It's an open port. There's nothing there, but I can put the module in if I choose to. I don't imagine I'll be doing fiber, but that's interesting that we're going to start seeing that on, I would call this a consumer product. It's not like a layer 3 Cisco switch, but for what it does and for the price, I think it's pretty good. Now, looking at the broad spectrum, if I were looking at, say, a switch, and I wanted to get a rack mount switch, I'd get 24 ports because for the cost, that's the best place to be for the money. And probably the two best to look at right now would either be a Ubiquiti, but I don't like the interface they use because that's a managed switch. If I didn't look at a Ubiquiti switch, I would probably look at a Zixel. And Zixel is probably the best deal for the money on a 24 port for a managed switch. And it has a GUI interface, works from a web page, whereas the one from Ubiquiti has a CLI, command line interface. And I'm not much for command line interfaces. And this also will work from a web page. That gives you an idea what it looks like. And it's also got a USB 3 port on the far left side. I wish the audio was better, Jack, but it's either noise or this. So we're just going to have to work with it today. Let me zoom back out. Again, remember the microphones are so that people online can hear us. Now here's one review. This is curious. Let's see what this one person says about it. Touchscreen was terrible. 80% of the time doesn't work, even with a very confusing setup for port forwarding and an unimpressive interface. If you don't mind bad quality control and are well versed with manually adding multiple NAT rules for forwarding one port, it's a good router. So that person didn't like it. That person didn't like it. You want me to talk louder? The concern if I talk too much louder is we're going to get feedback with the online audio. You know, when everything works, it's great, but there's so much stuff we take for granted. When it doesn't, it's a pile of junk. And here's a good example. We've had an audio system we depended on with the folks from Fairhaven. And now we're the guests here at Chapelwood, and that audio's got some problems. So we got two options. Either we get our own audio system and a couple of speakers, or we work with this. So I'll leave it to you guys what y'all want to do. So as far as the quality of it, all I've done is got it rack mounted. I haven't even had a chance to use it because I told y'all about another converter that I had acquired. Came down broken, all messed up. So I just yesterday got the new converter installed, got it rack mounted, and I've redone the cases so I'm not carrying as much stuff. So I haven't had a chance to work with the router or the converter. But I wanted to tell you about this router today. There's a little something I'm going to show you next week, but there's some more pieces I'm waiting on that's going to deal with monitors, which I think next week you'll find interesting about monitors. But today I want to tell you about this router. I also want to tell you about, we'll talk a little bit about Windows. What's the latest build? 1703. Some issues with that I want to get into. And I thought if we get a chance, we might take a look at that Threadripper. Now, if I throw the Threadripper up on the screen, the folks online won't hear it, and we won't hear it either because we don't have audio. So there's no point in watching it. What it was is a video from MSI that shows how to mount the new CPU. And the new CPU and the new motherboards are going to be out in a couple of days. Let me get into the interface of this router. Give me a couple of seconds. I'm going to have to get out a network cable. Those are down here. If we get lucky, maybe Tommy will come back before we get finished. Otherwise, he may show up about the time we finish up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in this router, and I'm going to change a computer over to it. Now, when I do this, I'm going to lose control of the switch. So the switch is going to be totally up to you, Lou. So you're going to be running the switch right now. I don't have a backup because I've got to change that computer. What I'm going to do, I plug in on port number 2, which goes out to the internet. So that's like the WAN port. And I'll plug in on another port for the computer, which will be like a LAN port. And I've got to have a coupler. First things first, I'm going to plug in on the WAN port. So that'll get me internet. And I'm going to plug a computer into that LAN port. So I'm going to take the computer on. Now what we're going to experience, if you'll notice, it shows up here network number 6. Do you want to allow the PC to be discoverable? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. I'm going to be into a new router. So what I'm looking at, I'm watching my network meter here to show my connection. And that should be on our new device. So I'm going to see if I can bring up the browser again, call up a new screen. Let's see if we actually have a connection. We do. So now what I'm going to do is do CMD, command prompt, and I want IP config /all. I'm looking at the network, and I want to know what the IP address is of this new device. And I'm going to right click. It's not what I wanted to do. Edit, mark, and I want that IP address I'm going to scroll up to, which is the default gateway. I'll magnify. This is a command line. So I'm going to click and drag. Got to go back up and get it again. Edit, mark, click and drag, enter. Now I'll go down here to the bottom and put that in. That's my IP address. That'll get me in. So now go back over to my browser. Let me zoom out for just a minute. And that is the new router. I wanted to show you how to do it this way to remind you, even though you've got all this documentation and some routers are smarter than others, any router that you need to get into, whether it's one you have now or one you're going to get later, plug that rascal in and go get it from the command line, because that's something you will always remember. Go get it from the command line, just like I did. I'm into that router. Some routers, like the Netgear, use a particular, where they are automatically translate, and instead of going to an IP address, you go to the name and they give the IP address. So it pops right up with the interface. Now it shows the mode, it's in a router configuration. The port is Ethernet 1, that's automatic. Address acquisition is automatic. IP address shows the MAC address. If I wanted to change the local network, the server range, it shows right here. 88, 168, 88, 254. Network address translation. Now I can set a VPN with this. It also shows the VPN address, shows the router identity, Microtik. Also tells me when you first come up with this thing, do the password and confirm a password, and also change the default admin account. Because if you'll notice, this is quick setup. I've got CapsMan, I've never used and I'm not sure what to do with it. I've got wireless, shows the interfaces. That's all the ports that are on it. In bridge mode, which it is not, the switch, IP. I mean, there's a lot here. So for someone that's having difficulty with this doing what they want, I'm going to use this for something very simple. This is going to do one thing. Because it's in this rack, it's the network to run the video switch and the equipment that plugs into the video switch, which is the video switch, the SSD recorder, and a Teranex AV converter that's on here, and any other converters that have to be plugged in. I can change the interface. It even shows graphs, traffic and system resource graphing, which I guess there's nothing yet to graph. Add new DHCP config, DHCP setup, and all I'm doing is looking at the default. Now, if I wanted to configure this router like the other router, and the reason for that would be to run the switch, then I'd go in to make some changes. But I'm into this. It works. All I need to do is set a password. And then, of course, the wireless. Wow, there's even a wireless sniffer and a wireless snooper up here. But if all I want to do is quick setup, I'll set an account name and password and I'm in business. And then I may come in later and change the IP address. But I just wanted to show you some basics on this. I may show you some more later. I have not had a chance to mess with it. And it says web config version 6374. This is a product out of Latvia. You know, we've always been concerned about the CIA getting into our routers. I don't see the CIA messing with something from Latvia, but I could be wrong. And I wouldn't have a need or a reason for it anyway if they did. So has anybody got any questions about a Microtik router? This is a Microtik 3011. No questions about a router? Okay. I'm going to take this and plug this back so that I can go back to the switch and have a secondary backup. So all I got to do, change one plug. I'm going to see if I'm back on the switch. Whenever I'm on a network, the equipment that I arrange for that network depends on the primary device. If I have like a managed switch, I might change the router for that switch because sometimes it's easier to change the router than it is the switch. Because usually you have to, if it's a managed switch, you plug in, you configure. It's just easier if everything works. The same applies to this video network that's set up. The primary device and the reason for this network is to separate the packets of you guys from the packets of this. This is hardwired, you guys are wireless. And a question was asked a while ago about the wireless. We talked about it last week. I mentioned it. I'll mention it again in a few minutes. The wired network, primary reason for this is for this video switch. So the default IP address of that switch is relevant, and that's what I would set this new router up, so that the IP address range would be something that would work with that switch. Now, yes, I can change the switch, but there's defaults. Not only do we use a video switch, Chapelwood also uses this same brand of switch. And Bob Luton over at Fairhaven also uses a same brand of switch. So the things I can do with this switch are beyond what some of the others can do, but the things I can keep the same as what they're doing makes it easy. If they ask me a question, I can get into it quickly. And IP addressing is one of those. So let me see if I've got control now again of the switch. Yep, I'm back up. That's what I wanted to find out. Okay, good. So again, this is a Microtik. And this came from Amazon. There's a 2011 which I ordered. What I received is the 3011. The 3011 has wireless in it, but it does not have antennas. Now, Microtik does have other routers that are not rack mountable. They have one that does wireless that does have antennas. But my number one need and reason and purpose and goal for this, I needed a router that I could rack mount that only took one space. Space in this rack, as big as it is very precious real estate. This fit the bill. Now, is this going to be a long-term router? I don't know. We'll see how it operates because it only gets used with the video switch. The other router that was in there did the job just fine, but it takes up too much space. It takes up 3 rack spaces, and I got to be in 1 rack space. So the Microtik fit the job. 10 gigabit ports, it'll do what I need. And if anybody else needs to plug in on occasion, for example, sometimes when people have wanted to plug into the wired network to get their updates, we put out the other switch. They plug in where Lou or where Ben or where Philip is at. Somebody else can plug into the network. But mostly, you guys are wireless. Now, on to the network itself. Somebody had asked about the, here we go. Somebody had asked about the network, and I think it was Robert Collier. There are 2 networks up here. There's a wired network, that's what I'm on. And there's a wireless network, that's what you guys are on. Chapelwood has 2 separate connections. You guys are on Comcast. I'm on AT&T Fiber. Now it brings up an interesting point. 2 weeks ago, when we moved the gear from Fairhaven, I want to thank you guys that helped with all that. As we were leaving out of the parking lot, somebody was installing some more networking capabilities. So I rolled down the window and asked, are you guys putting in fiber? Yes, we are. Fairhaven now has fiber. I don't know if it's AT&T, which wasn't available when we were looking, or what was the other option? Verizon. I didn't know you could get Verizon in this area. So now, just like Chapelwood, Fairhaven has 2 network connections. Comcast that we put in, and now that Chapelwood's involved, the fiber that they put in. That opens up a lot of capabilities. We stream right now at 1080. To stream at 1080 requires a little more bandwidth than the standard connection we started with. We have on Comcast at Fairhaven 100 megabit download and a 20 megabit upload so we could stream 1080. Here at Chapelwood, we have the opportunity and the capability to stream 4K because this is fiber. And they can allocate bandwidth on demand. So I think right now they've got an 80 megabit connection upload. which blows my mind. So of the 3 things required to stream and to stream in 4K, we have 2 of those. One is the bandwidth. It's available here. 2 is a converter, because everything we do is 1080. The special converter I was telling you guys about will up-convert in real time to 4K. So if we chose to, all we have to have now is a streaming device that streams 4K. This streaming device we're using only does 1080. I never thought we'd have the bandwidth to do it, but we may also have the bandwidth to do 4K over at Fairhaven. I don't know. Now, the network you guys are on is Comcast. It's wireless. It's an open network. You plug in, you go. Robert asked me about it, and you know the odd thing about it? At Fairhaven, when we set that network up, Bob said, what do you think is the best thing to get wireless here at Fairhaven? I did some research. I looked at a lot of options, found some really interesting tools, and I said, personally, I think Ubiquiti is the best place to go. With a grant from the day school over there, and with Bob's hard work, that's what they have. The reason I tell you that, that's the same thing that's here at Chapelwood. Ubiquiti wireless access points. So it's ironic, we didn't know about the 2 at the time, but they both now have Ubiquiti wireless. So that's what you guys are on. Comcast, and I'm on AT&T here. Where's Robert Collier? Oh, bummer. Was he okay? Oh. Well, he wanted to comment about the network, about all the work that had been done to put it in. I don't know how he knew, because he didn't bring a laptop. We'll do email later and find out. So that's what's going on with the network. Has everybody got network access okay? I'm surprised that Chapelwood is not concerned about putting a password on the wireless. But considering the neighborhood, I understand. I would think they would eventually, but time will tell. Yeah, there you go. Ray Morris grew up out here, which I found quite surprising. So I've shared with you a little bit about a network, the Microtik router board, the model 3011. I've talked to you a little bit about the network that we have here as compared to over at Fairhaven. And I've also showed you how to get into a new router or your own router. So there's a lot of information there we covered. Someone's going to come up and ask me later. Unless you ask me now, I may not remember it, because we'll move on to something else, because I'm going to talk to you about monitors next week. So has anybody got any questions about routers? Okay. The gentleman that was trying to get online, last week you didn't have your monitor, today you got your monitor. You wanted to get, what was your question you wanted to do? You wanted to be able to get on the internet? Have you been able to help him, Joe? What's your name?
Jim,
Jim? Glad you're here. Are you the one that called me a month ago?
a little hard to hear you.
Yeah, you're the one that called him a month ago.
No, thank you.
Oh, you weren't. Well, somebody else called me about a month ago when Mom was sick in the hospital, and I told him, I said, we're going to meet, but I couldn't do anything over the phone at the time right then, and I said, send me an email. He said, I can't because I can't get on the internet. So I thought maybe that was you. Do you have internet at the house? Do you have internet at the house?
You have internet at your house.
Yes.
What do you have? Do you have Comcast? Let me see if I can get over there a little bit
I
closer.
got Earthlink.
You have Earthlink? Okay, if you have Earthlink, then that means you have
Comcast.
exactly right. Okay, if you have Comcast, thank you, Lou. I'm going to see if I can get over here a little bit better, because I'm going to come over there where I can talk to you. So instead of me shouting, see if this will get us, get around that monitor. You got to remember, what we do here is just us, but the microphones, for the 4th time, are for the people online. So I'm going to go back here where he can hear me a little bit better. Since Joe's busy right now, you want to get on the internet, and you've never had this computer on the internet?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so you got him solved. Oh, he's all squared away then. Oh,
Yeah. I'm always, yeah, I'm
oh, you're good. Well, I didn't know that because you were busy. Jack got him on? You got him online, Jack? Well,
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you. And he was up. So at home, he'll use a wireless connection. But you got him the computer ready so it'll go. Okay, and you understand that you'll need a cable to plug in when you get home. And you've got a cable. Okay, good. And now that you can get on the internet, can you get your email set up as well? Oh, you did everything, Jack. Well, I guess I'm ready to go home. Thanks, Jack, for getting him squared away. Yeah, I appreciate it. I need it. Good Lord.
That turned out to be a community project.
A community project. There you go. That's the best kind. That's the best kind. Okay, so we got him successfully set up on the internet. What else are you working on, Joe?
I'm working on migrating Ed Spinks's computer from a 1 terabyte rotating drive to a 256 gigabyte NVMe M.2 drive.
An NVMe. Is that the one y'all were working on last week? Oh, I thought y'all had it finished. Y'all were just.
Well, we did. And he came into that, and it was booting off the drive SSD, no problem. And then there was a download of update, and now he can't get on the SSD because it has no drive letters. So we're trying to remigrate the data back to the SSD to
Gotcha.
start the process all over again.
How far along are you?
Not very. I mean, it says 0.
So you're just getting started.
Well, yeah, I think it's just going to take some time. I think if it doesn't start in the next 20 minutes or so, the thing to do would be to go back into and boot up on a rotating drive and delete the partitions in the solid state drive, so it will think it's a brand new empty drive and go on with from there.
Yes. I just realized where that was at. Sorry. Okay. Now you got it back. Thank you. Okay. There's a video I wanted to show you guys online of the Threadripper, but you're not going to be able to hear it. So what I'll do is it's not up for, well, actually it is. It's on the talking points today. It's number 10 on YouTube and MSI, how to install an AMD Ryzen Threadripper CPU. It's a new socket, a TR4 socket. Have you guys seen that? Have y'all looked at that? Well, that was one of the things that really irked me when Intel went from pins to the ball grid array. I didn't like it. Well, I'm going to have to learn to like it now, because if you look at how this Threadripper mounts, I'll bring it up. Let's see if we can, you're not going to be able to hear it because the house system's not on, but we can take a look at it. There's 3 screws he's showing that have to be removed. So he's going to remove these 3 screws. You notice that's not a Phillips screw. So this is on a brand new motherboard. And again, this is MSI. And he's got a glove on. So he undoes those 3 screws. Now he's going to pull this plastic insert out. And all he does is lift it up. And that insert piece pulls out. And the CPU is going to slide into that little device. But he's also got this cap that he's got to pull up. Yeah, there's the CPU. That slides in. So now you'll pull off this protective cap, and look at that. Ain't that a mess? And the whole thing goes down, and then the 3 screws go back down.
And notice which one he.
Well, I'm glad that's not a standard screwdriver, but it's just something else I have to get to acquire.
And notice which one he started with.
I thought
The
that was
one
interesting.
away from the hinges.
I thought that was interesting. Now this is what gets me. A pea size of goop. And he just blobs it on. He doesn't smooth it out. That used to be such a big deal for so long, for so many years. So now 2 screws and 2 screws. See, I've always understood that that stuff had to be evenly applied. But the fact that it's not a pad,
The pressure
the pressure puts it
applies
out.
smoothly all the way out.
That video is worth watching 2 or 3 times. Not bad. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you guys. Okay, let's switch back over. Thank you. That just happens to be one. There's another video after that tells how not to do it. We're not gonna get into that. So that was one of them. I've got the Microtik router board on Amazon, the YouTube video. Gigabyte's now launching the X399 motherboard for these new chips. And if we go to this link, we'll go to Gigabyte's site, and on Gigabyte's site there'll be 2 links. One, you can either go into Newegg or to Amazon to look at them. Now Milt, moving on. Milt sent me one about a new laptop, if anybody's interested. I asked Milt if he bought this, Kim Commando's new little laptop. He said he had not. But Milt shared some other specs with me for a laptop that he did buy, and I think he ended up paying like $250 for it, which is ridiculous. It was I believe it was a Lenovo i3. A Lenovo i3. It had, was it 8 gigs of memory and a 1 terabyte hard drive, a 15-inch screen and a 4-cell battery. He ended up paying like $250 for it at Micro Center. Was it Micro Center or was it Office Max? Office Max, wow. He said the only bad thing about it was the weight. So I said, well, you'll have to get your little assistant to carry it if your wife will let you. But even if she won't, I guess what she don't know won't hurt you. Yes, David.
Well, first of all, a comment on that. Our goal, I don't think the majority of us have the goal to have the cheapest computer out there.
Not a bit.
I mean, as much time as we spend on our devices, that's, penny wise and pound foolish. Or is it the other
I'm
way
only
around?
mentioning this because Milt was interested in it, and when you compare the price of what that was, which was not a high-end computer, then he turns around and goes and buy a higher-end computer for less money than this was.
Ah, okay.
So the point of that is just because something's cheap doesn't make it good. And because what you're looking for, you may find better than what you need. Always look for the good stuff.
Okay, let's hit on some current Windows issues.
Sure, build 1703.
Yeah, the creators update,
Right.
as distinguished from the soon-to-be, in fact, already available fall creators update. Now, if we remember right, those 2 updates are what are called feature updates, as opposed to the security updates and other updates that get pushed out regularly to your Windows machines these days. The feature updates are analogous to the updates we used to have when we went, say, Windows Millennia to Windows one was to Vista to XP. So there's some considerations to think about in your relationship to Windows 10. Did you buy Windows 10 that came on it, or did you take the free update from whatever you had before to 10 when that was still available? If you have a Windows 10, some of us that remember that had the pre-development, the preview versions of it that are available, and you still may be on the slow lane or the fast lane, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But Windows 10 does not get pushed out to your hardware until Microsoft thinks that your hardware has been proven to work with it. And within the last week, everybody who's running 10 posts what your hardware is now to work with your hardware, no matter what your hardware is. Now, you may or may not have awakened someday and found that your computer has been updated without your knowledge, but that may have happened to you very, very recently. And there's not much you can do about it if you have the base version of Windows 10 Home. Now, in the previous, and we've had 2 or 3 versions of Windows feature updates since the introduction of Windows 10. Windows 10 Anniversary Edition preceded the one that's coming out to your computer now, which is called the Creators Update. The Anniversary Update, a lot of people had issues with, and not so many people have been having issues with the Creators Update, although I know some of them. And remember, Windows 10 to make any decisions about when your computer is going to receive these feature updates, the major updates. You have to pay extra for another version of Windows 10. And that could be Windows 10 Pro or some version of Windows 10 Enterprise. In the Anniversary Edition of Windows 10 Pro, you were able to defer going to the next feature edition for up to 18 months. And they've changed that a bit with Windows 10 Creators Edition. In other words, if you're running Windows 10 Pro, you don't have quite the flexibility on waiting for the next feature update, which is going to be the fall Creators Update. You don't have quite the flexibility as you did previously. And you might want to go for, if you can find a way to get it, the education version, which gives you a little bit more flexibility. Now, Milt can clue you into how to get these updates a lot cheaper than what we otherwise would pay. For instance, retail for the update from the Windows 10 Home version to the Windows 10 Pro has been and still is $149. But if you can, but it's considerably less using Milt's the methods that Milt can tell you about, or if you have a student ID and can buy a copy of it from University of Houston, for instance, where you can get it for $19. $19. Milt? Where's Milt? Oh, okay. He's indisposed. All right, but when he gets back, we'll have to ask him about that. Now, the Fall Creators Update can be available to you now. You can force your computer to go get it by getting one of the I don't think it's a beta version. I'd have to look back in my notes and see what version it's out. But it's pretty well what is available that you could actually force your computer to update to now is pretty much what we're going to be getting with all the features, and there are probably not many reasons not to do that if unless your computer's really mission critical. But for instance, right now I'm doing the on my Asus laptop here, which is about 1.5 years old. I'm doing the feature update for to the creators update, not the fall creators update, the creators update, and it takes a little bit longer than otherwise. But you want to make sure that before you do that, that you have, number one, backed up your system with the more kinds of backup, and then the more numbers of backup, the better off you are. We suggest that you have maybe or have a external drive backed up, and that you maybe use something like Carbonite. Certainly have a off-premises backup of your system. Milt, I see you just walked back in. Can you remind everybody here about the methods that you version? Oh, you see, and library, churches, how PC, etc. And how many actions allowed? 50. So if some accountant were able to establish a 501c for this organization, then 50 of its members might be able to qualify for that. Is that right? Pardon? Okay, and would somebody like you be able to do that kind of stuff for our organization here? Yes, but no. Well, we'll get. You have to go through and prove that you're educational, which we are, and write bylaws. Well, maybe we want to look into that. But okay, back to our updates. Are there any of us in here that have machines that are running the preview editions of Windows? Joe?
No, I was going to say, I don't know if there are or not, but people keep saying preview versions and all these other versions. The important thing is, what are the last 3 digits of your version number?
For instance, the anniversary edition was 1607, and the...
Well, 1607 what?
Okay.
It was 1703, and then in parentheses it's build.
Yeah, the build number.
15063.
All right.
Point, 3 more digits. Like this one here is 540. And as that number goes up, and I think the university, the edition you're talking about is going to be like 604 or 602 or somewhere in that area.
When you say the edition I'm talking about, I've talked about several.
Well, the latest one.
I'm sorry, the fall update? Okay, well, that's
what
not...
I read.
That's not what I'm talking about at the moment. What I'm talking about at the moment is, before Windows 10 was out, some of us got on the developers ring.
Yes, I was
the
on
slow
that.
ring or the fast ring. And there's something I wanted to mention. Right before the next version comes out, the next feature edition comes out, the feature update comes out, there's a period of about a week, and they call it the magic window week, where those people who are still on the developer ring, slow or fast, can at that point get out of the developers ring altogether and go to whatever the current operating system is. So I bring that up in case y'all still are running the developers version. Pay attention to that. One place where you can pay attention to that is every Wednesday on the twit.tv website, there's a podcast called Windows Weekly with Paul Thoreau and Mary Jo Foley, both Microsoft writers of long. You when that time happens, and you don't want to dilly-dally because. And last week he mentioned that it should be coming up at any time. So that's about all I had to say about Windows today. Any questions about the Mac operating system?
Not a one. Thanks, David. Appreciate it. Okay, for Build 1703, Jim Fallon, you had some troubles. You put in 1703, and then you had to uninstall it because you had trouble, as again, Microsoft messes up the audio drivers, messes up the network drivers
Here
for
we
the
go.
video, and you lost what?
In other words, 1703 is on this laptop without a problem. The Windows Store put it on, I want to say in May or June of last year. The one that I had built, that's the one I had the problem with, and it Saturday night it put that 1703 on, and the sound disappeared.
And you've got a new computer.
Yeah, and I was going to say that last fall the sound disappeared on an update also. I don't remember the number of that update. But anyway, I went back, and after I'd tried to update the drivers and all the other things, I went back to the other one, and my sound reappeared. And then I sent you an article.
Last night?
No, I got to find it now. From Computer World. I think I sent it to you a couple of days ago. I don't remember.
Let's see.
About Microsoft releases dozens of bug fixes for Windows 10 Creators Update.
Yes. It's number 2 on the talking points, Computer
Right.
World.
But I'm not the only one that apparently had some difficulties with that build.
Understandable.
I had difficulties.
Did you really? What was yours?
Let's get Joe wired up. Joe said he's had difficulties.
I noticed, I just checked my laptop. I'm working with Ed Specs on his, and he's got build 540 on his Win version, and I've got 483. So what that really means is I'm luckier than he is. It hasn't crashed my machine yet.
Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention about that 1703. I went to my Windows history, and apparently when that 1703 on there, all your other history disappears. All of your 1703 history is still there. But then I went back to that other build, and the other history of when, from the time that it was built until now, came back.
What version do you have on that machine right now?
1703, but I'll have to look up the other number. I can't remember that.
It's the last 3 digits that really count, because there's a whole lot of different 1703s.
And it's very confusing, too. I had everything set up last week to run all those updates. Then last night I had another computer run some updates that I wasn't aware of. And then today we got up here and got ready to set up. I had a computer that always was set to go last night, and it updated again today to the latest one. Yes, David.
Now, Jim is right that when you complete a feature update, your update history disappears. So
There it is.
so before you do that, you want to, if it concerns you, you want to document them. Now, what did you do to get to that?
I'll have to go back
So,
to settings, update history.
okay, but this is just update history for 1703.
This is for this machine. Here's the update history for the all of Windows. I'm going to have to get back.
What's the last 3 digits of your 1703 on that machine?
Uh-oh. I'll have to get back to it.
540.
Here we
540?
go. No, it's
No, that's not what he's talking about there.
okay. Are
No,
you sure that's not it?
No. That's your knowledge base number there. Go back to the window you were just had.
Do the Win version, WinVer.
Yeah, WinVer will get you.
Yeah, WinVer will get it. And this shows version 1703, and then in parentheses, OS build 15063.540.
He's got the same version that Ed's got. So
Yeah.
you guys are, and you got it? Okay, so that means that since I hadn't turned my laptop on for since last Wednesday until today, they have not snuck it on my machine yet.
I've got one that's got 48300 as well from last week.
But my guess is I'll get it soon.
But
No, not necessarily. This is
You would hope, but
if it's got that, it'll take the other. I'm not worried about my hardware.
the sound works on this one.
Good.
Doesn't work on my home machine, but it works on this one.
Might be interesting to find out what your home machine version is, what the last 3 digits are.
yeah. Now, Joe's computer's interesting. I've got one that's got the same version as his, and I've gone to the Windows Update, and it says update status, a restart is required. It wants to do that for the 1703 to get me to the latest build, 540. I don't want to do that right now.
Now, if you want to go back, you can still go back.
And that's what,
Yes. And you can, as long as you haven't deleted in your directory something that says old Windows, .old Windows. And after a couple of updates, you can certainly use up a lot of space by keeping those old Windows around. Now, you remember that in the past, we really recommended that every year or two, if not more frequently, that you do a clean install of Windows. And it appears that Windows 10 doesn't get cruft building up quite as to the extent that older versions of Windows did. And that's not that, for what they're saying, that's not that critical to keep your computer running well. I noticed
matter
that
of opinion.
Tommy's computer over there is about as slow as any Windows machine I've ever seen. So he needs some help by somebody that's got some time.
Well,
go ahead, Joe.
I tell the guys that I work with that clean update every year or two. I guarantee you, I'm not going to do that.
Well,
Well,
I
bring-
end up doing it.
It
so.
brings up
I'm
an
just not
interesting
gonna do
point. Here, Joe's computer's 8 years old, and he's running Windows 10, and it runs fine. There's been some stories. How many years? 10 years old? Ed? Or you're
Mine's 9 years old.
9 years old. So Joe's computer is 9 years old. It's running Windows 10 fine, and you're one down from the latest build in Windows 10. And you're 10 years old, Ed? 7?
7.
Yours is 5 or 6. My point is, here are some older computers that are running Windows 10, and there have been some articles with some people that have computers that apparently are underpowered or whatever, that started Windows 10, and now they're getting this update that says, we will not update your computer anymore.
I would say thank you.
Yeah, I say thank you too. I'm real concerned about that because here they said Windows 10 is a big deal. Let's get a mic on Jack so we can hear him.
I was just reading an article here that the KB Lake processors and the Ryzen processors are all going to force you to the latest operating system. They're going to refuse to support the older ones.
Interesting. I had read some of that too, and I'm a little concerned about that, which I don't think is right. Yeah, I definitely think there's a collusion. I mean, my gosh, some of the processing power it requires to do some of the things that we finally got processing power to do other things, and Microsoft is still trying to play with that processing power. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all. Anyway, so we've got the new CPUs coming out, both Intel and AMD. We've got a link up on it, and I've got another link up here from Red Shark about why AMD's Threadripper is such a big deal. And there's another article up on Red Shark that I don't have here now that talks about editing. And that may be one of the ones that leads to that from Red Shark that's worth reading. Because for me, from my standpoint, it's just what Red Shark talks about. I'm looking for a computer that I can render with, and the faster I can render, the quicker. because now I have the ability to render in real time with this special video converter. So I'm going to be real curious as I compare the two, because there's a video that Lou shot of a World War II veteran giving a presentation. She shot it with a camera. And what I want to do is zoom in on that of him and see if I can do that in real time with that converter and compare that to actually taking that video and running it through a software program that renders it. And I'm going to compare the two and see what kind of results I get. I think it'll be curious because I want the highest quality, and I want to end up with a video that that soldier will be proud of to document what he went through in World War II for us. Because every time you hear one of those stories, it's amazing. Audio's pretty good, video's great, but it just needs to be zoomed in on him. Milt, did you have a comment? Milt, did you have a comment? Did you have a comment? Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you did. And also, I've got a link up here. You know, I'm always interested in what it takes to run, and this kind of leads into the video that I want to talk to you about next week. What it takes to run high resolution. We've talked about 4K. We've talked about 8K. Here's a link up on Extreme Tech on what it takes to run at 16K resolution. What's curious is the monitor layout and how this guy did all this. So there's a link there you can take a look at, but because we won't be able to hear it, I won't bring it up and run it. But I will say, from Jim, you brought us the link up on Extreme Tech. Intel announces the 18-core i9 and specs ahead of AMD's Threadripper launch. And I think the Threadripper launches in, what, 2 days? Do you know? Doesn't it come out the 10th?
No.
Well, today's the 9th, so it's either the 10th.
I don't remember the date.
I was thinking it was in a couple of days.
August 28th.
What gets me is here we've just built these computers that we consider for, you're okay, Joe, I got you.
That's okay, I gotta go. to the
You're out of it.
center.
Here we've got these computers we consider fairly new, and man, I can't keep up. I mean, for example, I built a Ryzen 7 1800. It's already, I won't say obsolete, but it's already old. And look at the FX machines we were building. They're all obsolete. And after I built the Ryzen machine, I don't want to build another FX machine. So I'm curious about this Threadripper, and I'm curious about this new i9 from Intel. But whether or not I'm going to build one right away, that's another story. Because there's so much stuff going on, and it's going on so fast. It's hard to keep up, and we do this all the time. So, something to think about. And there you go. That's what I was after. Thank you, Lou. Okay. So I'm going to go over to this link with Gigabyte for the X399 motherboard, and I'm going to take a look and see what they tell us if it'll come up. Oh, wow, website blocked. They're not letting me.
Huh.
That's interesting. I'll have to, wow. I'll have to mention that. That's interesting. I'll have to talk to Bond and to Tommy about that. The network is blocking us from getting to that IP address because they think it's a problem. And that is a site with Gigabyte. They send to resellers. And it's actually event.gigabyte.us/X399 promo. And we can't get to it. So I'll do X399 and we'll go search it. Now there's the straight Gigabyte site. Let's see if that'll come up. That's not the promo site though. Yeah, that comes up. The reason I wanted the promo site because it has the links that would take us into the vendors. So let me try. Try Amazon, see what we get. That'll do. Wow. So that motherboard is a $390 motherboard. Let's see what that's going to be on Newegg. Close, I imagine, to the same. Same price. Okay, release date 8/10. which would be tomorrow. And that little monster. And I think the CPUs are going to be what, around $1,000? Do you remember, Jim? That was on one of the links, but I don't remember. I don't remember where that was at. That may have been one we had up from last week. I wonder if this will let me bring up the Red Shark article. Yeah, it does. Okay, here's a good example. On August the 10th, the two models, the Ryzen Threadripper, 1950 with 16 cores, and a 1920 with 12 cores, $1,000 and $800. And it's all about video. And we've got this new socket. Okay, for the Intel, yes, but for where are you reading that at? Okay, I'm looking at it on Red Shark News, and it shows here $2,000 for the new i9. And I'm looking at the AMD, which is $999. So $2,000 for 18 cores from Intel, or $1,000 for 16 cores from AMD. That's interesting. 2 more cores for another $1,000. Something to think about. And then they go down to the 10 core for $1,000. So their 10 core for $1,000 versus AMD's 16 core for $1,000. Going to be interesting to see how that plays out. An 18-core Xenon starts life as a 22-core chip or possibly 24-core. Wow. I always get a kick out of reading what they had to say about it because from my standpoint, this is what it's about. It's about rendering. How quick can I render a clip? And I'm impressed with what the Ryzen's doing. I'm curious what the Threadripper will do. It's something to think about. So we learned a little bit about a router. Anybody in the business for a router? Nobody? You will be. Anybody that's got an internet connection, you should always be behind a router, behind your own router. So we learned about the Microtik MicroBoard Model 3011 router. It's about the size of a 2x4 at rack mounts. Showed you how to get into it. Bring up the command line. 1, 2, 3, you're good to go. We learned a little bit about the, that's unfortunate about Jack's laptop from last week, but the speaker, I agree. For the thing, what that cost, everything's got to work and work extremely well. And we also learned a little bit about, let's see, can we bring up camera 1? Appreciate it. Thank you. Camera 1. Camera 1. That's not camera 1. Well, we'll try it again. There we go, camera 1. Where's Andrew? Andrew, your niece didn't make it today. She had to go start getting ready for school? Will we see her next week? Well, if we're blessed to see her, I hope so. That's why I wanted Lou to run the switch. I thought she'd be here to help with that. But, you know, if she couldn't, maybe she'll join us when summer school starts up. Or spring break. That'll probably come first. Or the Christmas holidays. Good. Tell her we miss her. And let her know. Okay, so we also learned a little bit about Windows 1703. It's coming at you whether you want build 1703 of Windows or not, the different flavors. I thought I was good to go with all machines, and I got up here this morning, and I had one go at it again. And I've got one wanting to do it again as well, and I don't have time for it right now. So Microsoft is really making life interesting. And as we clone or image a machine, boy, it's really keeping us on our toes. This particular computer, if I do WinVer, will show me I've got 483, and I'm going to magnify that so you can read it. So I'm 1703, number 483. So if I drop everything down, I'm going to right click and do display. And then I'm going to go to settings. Go down here to the security. Back up here. Windows Update. And it'll show me. There's a security update for Adobe Flash. There's a cumulative update for 1703. But anyway, when I let this update go through, it'll take me from the current 483 to what's the latest?
1703.
1703, 483 to 1703, 5 something. Was it 540?
540 here.
Boy, what a task. Now you think about it, you got one computer, that's one deal, but you got more than one computer and you're trying to keep up with this? That's a daunting task. They keep us on our toes. Let's take that one offline if you would, Lou. Put me up on one. That'll work. I lost my Zoom. Don't know where it went. Well, that's annoying. Oh, there it is. Bingo. Now I'm back. Okay. Phew. What an ordeal.
So, how many people in here have seen the movie or the broadcast version, which just become available, of director Ang Lee's Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk?
You see that movie?
I started watching it last night on TV. It's available on demand on my Xfinity.
Has anybody else seen that
system.
movie? You want to announce it again?
It's director Ang, that's A-N-G, Lee's Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk. It's about a Iraqi veteran, that a hero who comes back and is honored at the Verizon Stadium, that, or I guess it's supposed to be Dallas where this is happening, and it what happens to him that night and his crew that's being honored is interspersed with flashbacks to Iraq. It's really interesting, and the wonderful thing about it is it was shot at 120 frames.
Really?
And it I did not get to see it when it was released to the Dolby Vision theaters while it was around. I just couldn't make it, although I wanted to. You know that the AMC chain has the exclusive rights to Dolby Cinema, which translates to Dolby Vision for our TVs. But Dolby Cinema, there are 6 or 8 theaters around town that can show that. And in the United States, the only theaters that can show it are AMC theaters. The AMC Colony, First Colony in Sugar Land, the Willowbrook Mall, Katy Mills, Deerbrook, and I think one down at Baybrook maybe. But those I just mentioned all have these theaters that are specially set up to show this, the best visual and audio experience you're going to have. You know, my dad built a house around a speaker, and he has the best bass you've ever heard in a house. You know, we call it the boombox house. But I took him to last weekend to see Dunkirk, which was
that good?
Oh, it was great. And he had to admit that he'd finally seen a movie movie theater that beat his home.
What'd you think of the movie Billy Lynn?
Well, I haven't finished it. I was about halfway through it, and my wife had a problem with the AT&T Uverse that she was not happy with, so I had to put my watching on hold while I took care of AT&T Uverse, which is not long for the world in our house.
I hear you.
No, it did. It didn't dwell on it. I saw some reviews on it that just really were unfair to it about that. But it's an excellent movie. But anyway, so Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk is now available on demand with Xfinity. If you want to catch it, it's pretty good. I like it.
I thought
and by
Dunkirk
the
was
way-
fair.
What?
See, I thought Dunkirk was fair at best.
You did? Oh. Well,
But they start off, and one of the early scenes, it said, flash up there, it said, mole or something like that. And that's the last you heard about it.
well,
They never mentioned it or identified the people.
Okay, okay. So it was not a person. The pier that goes out that the people were being were trying to be transported on, that is called a mole, M-O-L-E. So there was the mole, and it was not good in explaining that
Well, it
because
didn't-
you
didn't
thought
explain
it
it
was
at all.
You thought it was a person
Yeah.
who was a undercover mole or something.
Yeah.
Nah, it was just the pier that people walked out. The name for that is we're not English, at least I'm not, and it's a
When are they
mole.
going to learn to speak the language properly?
There you go.
It does. I'm watching it on a 4K ultra high def TV that can show.
Are you on a
Dolby
Vizio or
Vision.
Samsung?
A Vizio, and I haven't tried it on the Samsung yet, but on the Vizio, yeah. I mean, it's still broadcast, but it just so it is not even ultra high def broadcast, but it really is. I mean, you can tell it's better than normally you would get on standard.
Folks, I hope next week we'll have some audio. I will double check on that and see what we can get done about it. I can't make any promises. Let's bring up camera one. Thank you. So I'm hoping next week we'll have audio here in the building so we can hear a little bit better. I'll look into it, but if it's not in the budget to get that fixed, we're gonna have to look into our own audio. So I'll tell y'all, we either put up what like it is, or we can do something about it. So I'll let you know how things go. Does anybody have any more questions for today? Audio was okay last week, and audio was okay today until I started talking, and then the buzz started just like that. It first started up here, I thought, but then it seemed like it was on that side, and it went from here back to there. And Tommy was with us last week. He could have fixed it, but today he had to go take care of Fairhaven for what they're doing. So I'm hoping he can get this over here fixed. I'll ask him. We'll see. But I don't know how high on the priority list this is. So we'll go with what we can. Did someone turn the AC off today? It's hot in here. Oh, Lou, did you turn the AC off? Oh.
So one other TV watching suggestion for you: if you do have AT&T, you have a channel that you may not be aware of that's called ATT Audience, and tonight is the preview. I mean, is the debut of a 10-part miniseries by David Kelly, who also most recently did Big Little Lies. If y'all watch that critically acclaimed miniseries, but there's a thriller series starting tonight on AT&T, the pilot for it tonight, called Mr. Mercedes. Mr. Mercedes.
Well, I was checking the thermostat. It just feels hot in here to me. Maybe it's because I've been running around. Are y'all hot? The thermostat says it's 79, but the AC didn't kick on, so I'll check into that next week and see what's going on. Does anybody have any more questions today? Again, this is our second time to meet here. We've had some technical difficulties. Hopefully next week it'll be better. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Hope you enjoyed this. Next week, I'm going to got some stuff I want to talk to you about monitors, specifically about mounting monitors. It's going to deal with VESA mounts. So thanks for coming. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for our online.